Oh, there we are. And a pleasant good afternoon to everyone out there in Irish Breakdown land. I am Vince D'Addario. I'm the football analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. That guy over there, sight for sore eyes. That's Brian Driscoll. He's the publisher at Irish Breakdown. What?
I bathed and everything today. I think I look pretty good right now.
I'm just saying.
Thursday.
I am happy to see you. And I know that the good people at Irish Breakdown are happy to see you as well. So that is what I'm getting at. We had a 2-day hiatus because you were on your way back from Virginia. I hope you enjoyed yourself. But you are back and you're better than ever. And I'm excited about it.
I told you, no bonuses this month. You can keep throwing out those nice things. There's no bonuses this month.
Well, Brian, this is a huge week because it's rivalry week, man. I mean, there's no other team on the schedule this season that you could even say is a rival of Notre Dame. You know, we don't have to have the argument about. I mean, there's some people that might argue Purdue. But
they don't play anybody other than the only team you can argue that's a rival to USC is Navy, and it's not.
It's not. That's not a rivalry.
In order to be a rivalry, you have to play all the time.
Right. That's not a rivalry. And that's an easy argument to win. So this is rivalry week for Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame. It's USC. We didn't get this game last year because of all the nonsense that went down. You know, that one hurt, to be perfectly honest with you, because I love playing USC. And obviously lately I love whooping up on USC. And it's a good feeling for me. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about this game. I'm excited that Notre Dame missed a trip out to LA and they get 2 consecutive home games against USC, which I'm all about as well. But this is a big game, Brian. I mean, regardless of the fact that it's a rivalry game, because that makes it big, but this is the kickoff to the second part of the season for Notre Dame. It's, Notre Dame's coming off a bye week. We're going to see if anything that we have been talking about, comes to fruition. I mean, there's a lot riding on this game for Notre Dame.
There's a lot riding on this game for both teams, in my opinion.
Well, that's fair.
There's so many intriguing storylines for me. Number one is obviously Notre Dame related. Is the offense, like you said, or is the offense going to make the changes they need to make? The defense is about to get tested in a way that it's only really been tested once this year, and that was Cincinnati. Florida State's got some athletes. I guess I kind of act like almost like that was a preseason game, just what we've learned, because Notre Dame played so out of character in that game.
They did.
And then you look at other things and you say, okay, offense has a chance to get right. They're playing some really weak defenses coming up. Are they just going to improve because they are playing bad teams? Or are they going to improve because they're playing bad teams and they made adjustments and they're not going to just keep doing what they've been doing, right? Because they could keep doing what they've been doing and they're going to have greater success because the defenses aren't very good. But that's going to be, fake improvement. It's like 2019, at the end of 2019. Like, yeah, they played better and did a lot more, but they didn't really do anything different, and they didn't change anything. They just didn't have to play teams like Georgia and Michigan anymore.
Right.
So are we going to see that? That's a question that I have. Are we going to see the defense now? They're going to be tested beyond what they've been tested up to this point for the most part, and they've done a good job against, to me, the 2 best offenses they played, Purdue and Cincinnati, held Cincinnati to 24 points. I think you could argue the Cincinnati missed 6 points on field goals, but also was given 10 points on turnovers from the other side of the ball that didn't have anything. So, you could even say, actually, if you think about it, you could take 4 points away, 10 and 6. And, but still, you played well enough defensively against Cincinnati to win that stinking game. And so, to me, I think that's a big storyline for this weekend. Is the defense going to come out ready to go? What are we going to see from them? Is it going to be 3 down a lot? Is it going to be 4 down a lot? Are they going to, all these different things? How's the health of this football team? Brian Kelly talked today about, it sounds like Chris Tyree may not play in this game, because still dealing with the turf toe thing. So there's just so much at stake. I have my concerns about this game from a Notre Dame standpoint, not necessarily winning or losing. I don't think USC is very good. But just, okay, could they win and it kind of be like the wins they've had all year? It's like, you're just beating up on bad teams. Or is it going to be like, hey, they're going to come out and they're going to make a statement, like, hey, we're ready to be the team we thought we could be. And then it's obviously huge recruiting weekend. And I'm going to have an article up, I think later today, maybe tomorrow, where this could be a program changing recruiting weekend. We have that phrase, gap closers. this is a gap closing weekend. I mean, all borderline gap erasing weekend. When you think about all the recruits on campus, Xavier Nwangpa, Anthony Lucas, Hero Canoe, Billy Schrouth, 2023 kids
Huge.
like Drake Bowen's supposed to be on campus. I think Sonny Styles is going to be on campus. I think. There's been a lot of big-time 2023 kids going to be on campus. Walker Howard, the quarterback from Louisiana, I think Tom Lloyd reported that he's going to be on campus this weekend. So there's kids on campus that if you can impress them with your performance on the field, but then also all those other things, your program all of a sudden takes that, personnel-wise, maybe takes that final big leap. So
right.
There's a lot at stake this weekend.
Well, we got a super chat that dives right into what you just said, Brian, and it's a perfect time to bring it up from Mark Krismanich. Thank you, Mark, for the super chat. He says, been a while since being on a live show. Love you guys. We love you too, Mark. He says, what percentage would you say a team's performance impacts a recruit's overall weekend visit evaluation? I think this varies recruit to recruit, right? I mean, you've got stories on both sides, I think, that you could use in your argument for this.
I think where the performance impacts a recruit's overall weekend visit evaluation is not so much the win or the loss. I mean, you could use the anomaly of the, Michael Floyd visiting during the 2007 season, Manti Te'o visiting in 2008
right.
in a season. And, he visits for the Syracuse game where they lose to a 2-9 team who just fired their coach and all the different things. And, he's still signed with Notre Dame. But there's also been a lot of kids who came on weekends like that. I think of the 2011 USC game. I mean, I think of all the kids that are on campus that weekend. Zach Banner, Josh Garnett. I mean, it's a huge West Coast weekend. Notre Dame lays an egg, gets whooped by USC, and most of those kids don't end up with Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Deontay Greenberry's on campus that weekend. I mean, there was just a long list of big-time players out in the West, and they didn't get most of those guys. Was that loss the reason? No, because a lot of those kids didn't end up at USC. Zach Banner with the Zach Banner went to USC, but Josh Garnett went to Stanford, but it was like it was just kind of like it
didn't help.
The atmosphere is kind of, it wasn't a great game. They were behind almost the whole game. I mean, USC took that first drive right down the field and scored. You had that, that fourth down play where he pump fakes, I think Darius Fleming and ends up converting it. And then you had the Carlo Calabrese penalty that sets up a score. And then Notre Dame was just never really in it. They kind of got back close. George Atkinson had the touchdown kick return that got him back. You had Dane Chris as the offense. It's 24-17. You're knocking on the door, potentially tying. Dane Chris had replaced Tommy Reese, who had gotten hurt, and fumble. They returned it, and it's ball game. It just wasn't a great atmosphere, even though that was the day that was the first game of the gold helmets that we see now. Remember, that was the debut of the gold helmets. Yeah. This was after a bye.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, tamped down things a little bit because Notre Dame had kind of won some games. But I think the bigger factor wasn't necessarily that they lost that game, but that game was just their second loss of the season, and they ended up losing like 3 more and went 8-5. So I think it's more about the environment. I mean, if you're at a place and you're looking at it and you're a pretty level-headed kid and all that, and there's 80,000 Notre Dame fans, and they're just going nuts for 60 minutes of game time, 3 hours or whatever, that's going to matter to you. I remember talking to Stephon Tuitt when he visited for the Michigan game in 2010. That was a game that Notre Dame lost, but the environment was great. And, I remember how moved he was when, he rode the wave, the crowd, the student section kind of put him up and they did like the push-ups with him. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
That the environment impacted him more so than the final score.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where it can have a big impact. Most of these kids are pretty, especially kids like Xavier Nwangpa and Anthony Lucas and guys like that they're pretty smart, savvy kids. They're not going to be emotionally turned on to a team because they happen to be like, let's say Xavier was at the Purdue-Iowa game last week and he comes to Notre Dame and Notre Dame beats USC by 30. That's not going to be the reason he decides to pick Notre Dame.
Right.
Will it be something that factors into his overall feel coming out of the visit? Yes.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of where I look at it
and it's all of it, right? I mean, it's the player walk, it's, everything that goes along with the game day. Of course, a win. Oh, you want to win. Look, if you're the recruiting coordinator, you want to win. I mean, that's a given, right? But it's everything. It's the presentations and if they're official visits, it's the visits with the professors, and it's all of those things, and they're all wrapped around the game. I mean, it's important, but it's not the be all end all.
Right. But I do think the energy level, like we have a comment down here that's from Drew that says Notre Dame Stadium's atmosphere is lacking. And I think Kenny Moore has a great response, which is night games are different at Notre Dame.
They are different.
And here's the thing. Notre Dame's crowd is not what other crowds are. I'm sorry. You all can get mad at me if you want, but I think most of us, deep down, we know that that's true. That is not the case in big games, big night games especially. When Notre Dame plays a big-time opponent at night, at home, it gets loud.
It does.
We've been at some USC games, Vince, recently where it was rocking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally. So I remember 2015, we were on the opposite side because the press box was on the other side. You had an open roof. My wife was actually up there videoing the game before they stopped allowing us to do that. And I remember going up there. And I had gone up there kind of in between the first series. USC had taken that first drive right down the field, if you remember, and scored a touchdown. And this is the 2015 game. And I was up on the top when Deshaun Kaiser hit Will Fuller on that post route on the first play of the next series. That place erupted.
Yep.
I mean,
it was him versus their best corner. I mean, it was.
But it was nuts.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Nuts. So, so I mean, to me, that's kind of the way I look at it. I think it'll be a loud environment. I hope it is, but I also think there's a lot of frustration right now, and with the program, and hopefully this weekend it doesn't kind of manifest and show itself on game day. Hopefully the fans are put all that aside, and when game day comes, be loud and be excited and all.
Absolutely.
That kind of stuff.
Yep. We got one more super chat before we dive into all of our matchups and keys and fun stuff like that. John A1 says, happy Thursday, IB. Big weekend for the offense to step up. But in my opinion, the defense has what we hoped preseason to win the next 6. Notre Dame 34, USC 20. Go Irish.
Thanks for that, John. Appreciate it,
John.
Buddy.
Thank you. Okay, Brian. So again, this game is huge, but let's break it down a little bit. This is the first opportunity you've had to really talk about the USC game because Sean and I did the 2 stacking up shows, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say specifically in this topic. We're going to talk matchups, and we're going to go offense first. We're going to talk offensive matchups for Notre Dame versus USC's defense that you're looking at that could decide the difference in this game.
Well, to me, first of all, Sean's daughter goes to USC, so I had to let him. And you guys do a great job together. So it was good for me. I was able to get caught up on stuff, and you guys did a great job. But man, I've been chomping at the bit trying to talk about this matchup.
Yeah.
For me, there's several matchups, and let's start with the offense, Vince. And for me, the first matchup that I look at that matters most, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here. It's Tommy Rees versus Todd Orlando.
Ooh,
I mean, that's the big matchup for me because Todd Orlando is going to do some things to try to give Notre Dame problems. There are some schematics. Here's the thing. Notre Dame is not, to me, so much better than USC that they can just line up and just run their normal stuff and just have success. They don't have – the receivers are very good. There's no Will Fuller. There's no Michael Floyd. The offensive line should be much better than it is, but it's not the 2017 offensive line.
Right?
And so, to me, you have to put your players in position to be successful, and then they are good enough to dominate, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at. So Tommy Rees is going to have to do a better job than he has in regards to identifying a few things. Okay, finally, stop trying to be who you think you want to be and be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Use your formations and motions and stuff properly. My fear is that they're going to watch the Oregon State game. And Oregon State did a lot of 12 personnel and just ran it down USC's throat.
Right.
Well, Oregon State's a running team. They have success running the football. You are not. And my fear is that they're still living in this who we want to be thing, and that he's going to watch that game and be like, hey, Oregon State did it. We can do it.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Oregon State's a lot better. Oregon State's rushing for over 240 yards a game this year. They've gone over 250 yards 3 times. They wins for 77 against Purdue, and then since then they've gone for 256, 248, 322, 242, and 309. Right? So you're not Oregon State. It makes me want to barf to say that, like that Notre Dame shouldn't expect themselves to be able to run the ball like Oregon State. That I want to throw up, but it's true. We're all fired up about, man, they ran for 180 against Virginia Tech. So stop trying to
take those wins where you can get them, man.
Stop trying to be that, right?
Yeah,
and so is he going to say, okay, yeah, we're going to do it this way. We're going to adjust. We're going to adapt. This is who we wanted to be, but we're not that team. We're going to do this thing over here. I'm not going to put Michael Carmody on the field for 30 snaps a game. I'm going to make sure that we're getting our backs and our slots and our receivers and those guys in the field. I want to see that, because if he does that and then he uses things that I think we need to see, like we've got a comment down here from Nick that I thought was great. I love that. But one of the things that Chip Long did, because Notre Dame's offense whooped USC for the most part in the two matchups that they had at home under Chip Long. And then in 2018, it was the same way. He did a lot of things against USC where he used their lack of discipline against them. He used their aggressiveness against them. I think of the post route to EQ in 2017. I think of the reverse to Kevin Stefferson in 2017 that got that offense kind of sparked, and then that opened up some things. I think of the reverse to Braden Lindsey in 2019, things like that where you kind of use
against
some
USC,
of those, right?
Like that.
Right. Well, I'm only talking about USC.
I know, but it's just
2018,
where
USC came out with that game plan to stop Notre Dame's run game, where the guards would pull and he would just, if any movement from the offensive line, the USC linebackers were flying downhill. So he runs a buck sweep to the right, sends Dexter Williams to the left with no line blocking. Literally, the offensive line was a decoy for Dexter Williams running the ball. Think about that. In the last two matchups, Notre Dame has had two 50-plus yard touchdown runs against USC where the offensive line was a decoy. They didn't have to block a soul for that play to work. Think about that. And then you think about how they're executing the offense this season.
But that's how undisciplined USC's defense was then, and they're even more undisciplined this year. You
have to take advantage of that. And you don't take advantage of that by just lining up and running your inside zone. You take advantage of that of messing with their eye discipline.
Absolutely.
So this is an opportunity for Tommy Rees to really show me something. And I'm come on, Tommy, do it. We're going to find out what kind of creativity he has, what kind of outside the box thinking he has. Every coach has their flaws, and Chip Long had his flaws. But the one thing Chip was really good at is he was really good at scheming for big plays. And just think of all the big games. You think of the throwback touchdown pass to Alizé Mack against Stanford. Thinking of the USC games, we talked about several in those opportunities. He was able to kind of say, "Hey, look, we're going to do some things to get a matchup that we like, and to use a rollout right to throw back and all those type of things to create a big play." And I think of the even something simple like the swing route to Tony Jones that went for a big play in 2018. You knew they were going to blitz. So if you know they're going to blitz, you have two options, right? One is I'm going to max protect to protect against it. Or Chip just said, okay, fine. You want to blitz. We're just going to put everybody out.
Right behind you.
Guys cover everybody. And hits Tony Jones at the line of scrimmage, and he turns it into if Tony Jones can do that, what could Kyron Williams do?
Right.
Right.
Or even Logan Diggs for that matter.
Right. So this is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for Tommy Rees to really put his DNA on this offense. And right now it's still a Brian Kelly offense. No matter what anybody tells me, it's still very much a Brian Kelly looking offense. I want to see Tommy Rees's DNA get put on this thing a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think this is an opportunity this weekend for him to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't say I disagree with you on that one. You want to go through a couple more of yours, or do you want to go back and forth? How do you want to do that?
I was thinking we kind of go back and forth, but I can go through hey, buddy, you're the host, man. We'll do whatever you want to do.
The power. I've got a weird one for my first one. I wrote this down. I put Cone versus his offensive line.
I'm sorry, I let you have the show for a couple days. Now you feel like you got all the power. Sorry, let's get back on track.
It's all good, man.
That just struck me as really funny. I'm sorry.
It's all good. No, I wrote down Cone versus his offensive line, and I know that that's not like a head-to-head.
No, I want to hear this one. This sounds really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, this is an opportunity for Jack Cone to be successful. This is an opportunity for him to for his attributes to be highlighted, right? And if he can stay upright, if he can have even a little bit of time, he is going to pick apart this USC defense because they are so undisciplined with their eyes, with their drops, all of the above. And I think that this just feeds right into what Jack Cohn is good at if he gets the time to do it. Right. And that's all on the guys up front for him. Now, Jack Cohn can't step into sacks and he can't do some of the things that he's done. I totally agree with that. But that kind of falls into what I'm talking about, in that he needs to understand what his line is doing so that he doesn't do those things. So it's kind of him versus them. It's like, okay, I need to know what you guys are doing so that I'm doing my thing, and then I can make us successful. This is a big deal for me. I like Jack Cohn a lot, and my confidence has waned a little bit at times.
Sure,
but I feel
how
like
can it not?
Right, but I feel like this game right here can make me a believer again. And I think that this plays right into his hand if he gets the help that he needs. Because, look, there's going to be guys open against this team. There's going to be guys open. He's going to be able to find them if he has the opportunity to do so.
So I wasn't going to talk about this because it didn't really fit in any of the categories. But since you brought it up, to me, this is a make or break game for Jack Cohn.
I agree.
This is a game where it's like and for Tommy Rees, if we're being honest, if we just see more of the same offense, like what Notre Dame has done this year offensively, which is so infuriating, is essentially repeating the same basic stuff over and over again and hoping it'll change. And now a couple times early in games, they've come out with a really intriguing script that's kind of put them in some situations where to put some nice drives. I mean, the best drive they had all game against Cincinnati was the first one.
When it ended in an interception.
Jack had those interceptions, but like schematically,
it was a great drive. Yeah.
And then, of course, once they get off the script, it's like kind of back to same old, right? If in this game we see a change in scheme that puts Jack in position to say, hey, look, we're going to build around you. Well, then he's got to go out and execute, right? And my biggest fear is that they're going to do that early. The script's going to look great. They're going to come out and score early, and then they take him out, put Tyler in, and what does that do to the rhythm of the offense?
I really hope that's not the
case. But it's going to happen. I mean, this is, to me, I think it will. But the point is, if Tommy does that, now it's up to Jack to say, look, you're going to get hit sometimes. It's just fine. It is what it is. You're going to get sacked probably once or twice. I mean, it happens. But don't start looking for the pressure. Stay poised. Keep your eyes downfield. Get the ball out quickly. Be like you were in the beginning of the year against Toledo and Florida State when you were willing to take some shots to get rid of the ball, which he did. He got hit a couple times. I mean, early in the game, they had that great wheel route throw to Michael Mayer against Toledo. It was a little bit of a slow, like slower developing play because it was a wheel by the tight end. He knew he was going to get hit. He let it go and got drilled and face planted, but bam, 28-yard gain. He's got to play with poise, because if we see more of the same from Tommy Rees and him, at that point in time, it's like, okay, look, you guys clearly aren't going to fix this thing, so just put in one of the younger guys, because this is maddening.
Yeah, agreed.
He's going to have this game where Jack's going to say, look, there's a reason why they're believing in me. You got to reward them for their confidence in him. And a lot of people are, you bench him, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. But if you keep doing what you've been doing, then eventually those calls are going to get louder and louder and louder, and it's going to make less and less sense why they keep him at quarterback. This is an opportunity for him to say, this is why I'm at quarterback. It's not just the 2-minute drill. And yes, I played great against Florida State and had my moments against Purdue, but this is what this team is capable of. Because if they can build around what Jack Cohn does, and he can then play well, execute and play well, this offense is going to explode in the final 6 games. Because,
I agree.
Number one, they're too talented not to. Number two, they're playing a lot of bad defenses.
A lot of them. There's still going to be the detractors. Yeah, there's still going to be the detractors that say, oh, well, Jack Cohn's not that good. They're playing against bad defenses, blah, 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 blah.
That won't be the majority of fans, and it definitely won't be the ones here in
this
channel.
No, it won't be.
And I think the people that are against Jack Cohn in this chat, for the most part, there's a couple people that just like to be mad. But I think most of the people that are frustrated with Jack Cohn in this chat and on the message board are people that are frustrated by the lack of ability to put consistent drives together.
Yeah.
It's understandable. I get it. I get it. I just don't think that – I think that sometimes the issue we make – the mistake we make when we look at backup quarterbacks is we look at, well, he came in these 2 drives, and then we kind of gloss over the fact that, well, they also had a lot of bad drives. Like there's the people that are pro Tyler Buckner, and I get it because he's incredibly talented. They will – focus only on the second quarter, and ignore the
second half.
Could you imagine the reaction from fans if Jack Cohn in almost an entire second half went 1 of 6 with 2 interceptions.
One for a touchdown. You know, I mean,
to the other team.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it, but if Jack plays well, 99% of the people in this forum and on our message board, because I think we do have very thoughtful, educated fans. That's why they like our channel, because they want to think about football beyond just the emotional fan reaction. We'll say, great, this is why you brought him here. Because I think a lot of people were excited about him before the season.
Yeah.
And especially after Florida State. I mean, there wasn't anybody really outside of a couple guys, okay, that just, it doesn't matter what they do. They're just going to always be angry.
Sure.
People were fired up about Jack Cohn after the first game.
Yeah, so was I.
So I get it. But that's my second one, Vince. This is a big game for the outside receivers of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
USC actually has talented corners. Isaac Taylor-Stewart is long and talented. He's the exact type of player that has given Kevin Austin problems. He's long, he's athletic, and he likes to press. And that's been like kryptonite to Kevin Austin so far this year. Same with Braden Lindsey. Chris Steele is a very talented player. They've been really inconsistent. I know you guys talked about it in the show. Was it Tuesday?
Yeah.
This is a talented USC secondary, but a very inconsistent USC secondary. Are the outside receivers going to be are they going to play sharp, sound football? If they are, an aggressive football and be physically tough and mentally tough against the USC press, then I think, because USC likes to press, and if they've watched any Notre Dame film this year, they're going to be like, yeah, those guys don't like being pressed.
Yeah.
They're going to press. So this is an opportunity for Kevin Austin and Braden Lindsey to say, okay, yeah, I know I've had some issues with that in the past, but we've made our adjustments, right? Because the adjustments aren't just about coaches. Kevin Austin you're a senior in college.
Right.
You got to be able to look and say, hey, clearly, if your coach isn't teaching you to do it, you got to be able to say, well, okay, I can either just keep not doing it, or I can figure something out.
Right.
Right. And work on some things. So that's what you do, is what I had players do, what I did as a player when I was a freshman, because I started at receiver as a true freshman, and I'd never played it before. And so I was pretty athletic. And so there would be things where, like in practice, I'm going against the corners and they're jamming me up. So what we would do after practice, we would get together and say, hey, man, let's work on this. What moves could I do on you that would help, that would give you problems?
Right.
That's what we would do. And that's how I got better as a player, because I've never been taught how to get off a press. So you go out there and put in the work. Right. Well, that's what Kevin Austin and Braden Lindsey need to do. Hey, why are you getting destroyed in these 2 games against Cincinnati and Purdue? Okay, it's because I'm not, and I think to a degree they're doing that. We saw him have that great press release against Virginia Tech. They got him free for a 46-yard gain. So if they put in the work, I think they could have big games, because they can beat these guys, but they're going to have to be on top of their game. And so to me, that's a matchup that I'm going to be watching early and often, because Kevin Austin and Braden Lindsey are capable of having those big chunk plays that could really help this offense in this game.
Yeah, I like that one. My pushback would be, I don't think USC is very good at press. I don't. They're not. I agree with you.
But I don't think you need to be great at it against this.
And that was going to be the next thing that I was going to say.
Right.
Like, as they're watching film, they don't necessarily need to be great at it, but it's an opportunity to gain some confidence for this Notre Dame.
And that to be good at that, because if you have good press release moves, because for example, when you talk about, well, they're not good at it. Well, I could point to some games against like Stanford, for example, who has those bigger receivers that the USC corners I thought did a pretty good job of the press. There's other times where they lose it. So to me, it's the receivers that have been good at getting off the line. Once you stack them, these guys are not good. They grab, they pass interfere, they do all types of dumb things. There's times where I'm watching them against Stanford, and they actually did a great job jamming, and the quarterback threw the ball down the field, and instead of finishing the playoff, they get all grabby and get
keep jamming
interference.
Like they keep, exactly.
Right. But the way that Notre Dame has been, they don't really take those shots. Once a guy gets jammed, it's kind of like
they're done.
So if they can win at the line, this is my whole point. If they can win at the line, they can do damage in this game. That's where those chunk plays come from, and that's where I'm coming from, because these guys are talented, but they're not. They don't play like they're to their talent level.
No, I got you.
It's exactly what we've said about the Notre Dame receivers. If you don't know Kevin Austin and Braden Lindsey like you and I do, and you watched 2 full games of them, Purdue and Cincinnati, Would you come away thinking that those guys were any good?
Right.
That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, my second one, and this is where I decided to take the layup, but it's Alton Lugg versus Jackson and Foreman. Their ends versus Notre Dame's tackles.
Scratch off my third one.
I mean, look, I know it's a layup. I know it's obvious. I get it, but it's still really important to this game because it falls back into what I was talking about before, where I think Cone can have a very good game here, but he needs to be upright. And if those guys can't keep the ends out of the backfield, then it doesn't matter. And so, I mean, it's a huge matchup, and I think it's a one that Notre Dame can win because I haven't really been super impressed with USC's front. As Sean said yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago, they're lighting the pants. They're not going to overpower you, right? And I think that Lugg and Alt can do a good job with their strength, but they have to be careful of some of those athletic spin moves, et cetera. And I think that Joe Alt's gotten better at that as he's had an opportunity to play. But that's what they're going to have.
They beat him on that early by Virginia Tech, but the next couple times they tried to beat him on it, he was prepared for it.
Exactly.
Because when you're a freshman, that sometimes, hey, look, I've never seen a 6'6", 245-pound kid do that move on me.
Right.
Because Notre Dame players don't really do that move a whole lot.
Right. Totally agree.
That was my third one too, Vince. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I mean, it's a huge matchup. It goes back to your previous point, your number one point. If they can give Jack Cone time,
right,
and give Tyler Buckner time. I mean, we saw this against Virginia Tech. Second quarter, they gave Tyler Buckner time to throw, and he made some gorgeous throws.
Right.
So if they can give the quarterbacks time, then I think they'll rip this USC defense apart.
And my final one, and I'll kind of speed through this just a little bit, but it's Notre Dame's running backs versus the linebackers for USC. They can't tackle, and I love Notre Dame's running backs against teams that are going to try to arm tackle them. I think this is a big opportunity for Notre Dame in the run game, and I'll elaborate on that a little later.
Yes, because that's actually one of my keys to success. We'll have another opportunity
it's one of my keys as well. So I'll elaborate later. But I think Notre Dame can have some success with their running backs versus these linebackers in various ways.
Yeah.
And again, we'll elaborate on that later.
Yeah. So defense, we'll go defense, Vince, and then we'll get the super chat by Dan Muller before we dive into the keys.
Perfect.
Defensively, Vince, I mean, the first one I'm not going to dive too much into because the first two actually for me, I'm not going to spend a whole lot on time on because they're also part of my keys to the game. So I'll elaborate more. And I don't want to get redundant, but my first two are Drake London when he's matched up against Clarence Lewis and Tariq Bracy.
That's number one.
And then Notre Dame's linebackers against the USC running backs, who are used a lot in the pass game, and they do a lot of things in space, run and pass. Those two matchups are very, very, very important for me. And no, we did not talk about this beforehand.
But I'm getting out my pen because I have to mark off.
Scratching off 1 and 2.
Yeah, the first one was London versus Bracy and Lewis. And then my third one, I actually had Keaton Slovis versus the linebackers because I think that they will look at some film and feel like that they can take advantage of the linebackers in the pass game. But it's very similar to what
they're
you
matched
said.
Up against the running backs and at times tight ends. But
it's the same one.
My third one is you've got two game wreckers up front for Notre Dame, Isaiah Foskey and Jason Adamiola. You've got two guys that can take over a football game. And you have a quarterback for USC that doesn't handle pressure well. And I mean that like literal pressure, not like pressure of big games, but literal pressure. You need, in a game like this, against a rival, a statement game, a game where you're playing an offense that if you don't dominate up front, and we'll get into this in the keys too, you're going to have some problems. You need your dudes to be dudes. Foskey has to dominate the tackles. Jason has to dominate the guards. And at times the tackles, because he will be in some three-man fronts where he will be lined up on the tackle. So, to me, Foskey and Adamiola against the USC linemen, whoever they're matched up on, is a must-win for Notre Dame. And I think it's a matchup they should win, can win, and if they do, USC is going to have a hard time moving the football. And there's a lot of carryover between my keys and my matchups, so we won't spend a lot of time on those. We'll talk more about them when we get into the keys to the game.
Yep.
Before we move on to the keys to the game, Vince,
you
want to handle the super chat real quick? We got a couple of them here real fast.
We do have a couple of them. Here we go from Dan Muller. You got that one? Okay, perfect. It says, thank you, Dan, by the way. He says, if Notre Dame and Cincinnati win out and Notre Dame looks good, do you think Notre Dame will make the playoffs, given the fact that they have the best loss of all the other teams?
The committee hasn't been adamant for years that you're not going to get brownie points for having the best loss. They care about who you've beat. The thing that's going to hurt Notre Dame at the end of the day is not that, hey, we lost it by 11 at home to the best number 2 team in the country, for example. Let's just say because Georgia wins out, for example. They're not going to care. It's going to be, well, who did you beat? Did you play another team like that? How did you do? What Notre Dame needs to happen for the remaining season is not for Cincinnati to win out. That's not really relevant. They need a bunch of other teams to lose. They need chaos. They need the Big Ten to just sort of eat each other up. They need Ohio State to lose again. They need Penn State to lose again, and they need Michigan and Michigan State to. I mean, they just need them to just like you all beat each other up. Because here's the thing: there's 2 1-loss teams left. Well, 3 1-loss teams left in the Big Ten, and 2 undefeated teams left in the Big Ten. Both Michigan schools are still undefeated. Penn State, Ohio State, and Iowa all have 1 loss. Well, they're all going to have to play each other at some point. Now, Iowa doesn't play any of them in the regular season, but if Iowa wins out, they're going to have to play one of them in the Big Ten championship. None of those 4 teams have played each other yet. So only one of them can remain undefeated.
Right.
Notre Dame needs none of them to remain undefeated. They need Oregon to lose again. They need Wake Forest to lose again, right? Or lose once. If Wake Forest loses a game, the ACC's done. The only chance the ACC has is getting a playoff team is if Wake Forest runs the table because they're still undefeated. So they need that. They need a lot of that to happen. They need Alabama to lose again. So, I mean, if you're a Notre Dame fan and you are I want them to make the playoff, you got to hope Georgia runs the table and beats Alabama.
Yep.
Because 1 loss Alabama and 1 loss Georgia, they're both getting in.
Yep. And Notre Dame's not.
This crazy season, and Notre Dame's not in that situation. So, to me, and root against, I think, if anything, you need to root against Cincinnati to lose twice. That's what you need. Because the 1-loss Cincinnati team's probably getting in and over, and should, to be honest with you. Because you can't tell me that Notre Dame's wins are going to be that much more impressive than Cincinnati's wins at the end of the year because there's no Notre Dame on Notre Dame's schedule like the one Cincinnati has.
Sure. Yep,
so
agreed.
You need a lot of chaos. But it's possible.
It's definitely possible.
Kind of interesting. But right now, it's
chaos
more about,
all year.
Hey, let's go beat USC and show that you're not the same team. Because if Notre Dame just tries to do what they've been doing all year, they're going to lose another game. They're not going to run the table.
Absolutely agree. One more super chat here before we move on to the next thing from Chili. Thanks, Chili. Appreciate it. He says, hey, fellas, we've talked about the importance of nickel coverage against Southern Cal. What about using dime coverage in situations? Please explain those situations where we might need it.
Well, I think they kind of already do dime. I mean, we talk about nickel a lot for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's been more of a dime defense recently. We're seeing the nickel go in the game, but we're also seeing another safety in the game a lot that we've seen. So, basically, in very general terms, nickel is 5 DBs, dime is 6 DBs in the game, right? I think against USC, you'll see a lot of that. I think there's 2 instances that you'll see it. 3 really. And the 2 are obvious, 3rd and longs, and then the other one would be any kind of late 2-minute half situation. And then the other is if Notre Dame jumps out to a big lead. I think what you may see more of that. Now, what you can't do if that happens, and this is what happened to Clark Lee in 2019, is Notre Dame got a big lead, 17-3, and then they did a lot of nickel and dime. USC made some adjustments. Well, USC had enough time the whole second half to nickel and dime them their way down the field and put scores together. What you can't do is go dime and then lose your aggressiveness. And that's what Coach Lee did in 2019, which it was actually 20-3 in the 3rd quarter. USC climbed all the way back to make it 23-20. Notre Dame scored to make it 30-20. USC went down and scored again, make it 30-27. Notre Dame needed a first down on that next drive to put the game away. And it was because he not only went dime, but he went dime and lost and stopped being aggressive.
Right, exactly.
So I'm okay going dime, but you better still have an attack. You still are, and that's going to be the key for me, Chili, is, I'm cool going dime. I don't think we're going to see like the traditional 4-2-5 a ton. I think we might see more like 3-3-5 at times. But just because you're playing a team like throw the ball doesn't mean you need to be putting Isaiah Foskey off the ball and dropping him into coverage. That's my biggest concern in this game.
Right. Yep.
Is if they are still doing that against this team, I'm going to have some serious problems with that.
Agreed. Yeah, I completely agree with that. No sense to to elaborate. That would trouble me greatly. I have no problem with going 3 down. None, because you're going to see that. But
Right.
if yeah,
and you need to see that. I mean,
yes, you do,
because like you need to say like we'll get into it more when we get to keys of the game. But yeah, you need to see that at times. There is a time and a place against this team to do that. There's no question.
Right. Okay. Keys to the game, Brian. Let's jump right in. We'll go offense first. Your first key to the game, sir.
It's simple, and we've talked about it a lot, so we don't need to rehash it again a ton. You got to win up front. Give Jack Cohn and Tyler Buckner time, be able to run the football. Now, I don't think winning up front requires 13 personnel and a bunch of 12 personnel. You can do it out of 20, 21, and 11. But whatever you're in, be physical and be assignment sound. If you're physical and assignment sound, you will be. This is a very mediocre USC front seven outside of 2 guys that one's injured, the other's a true freshman. Drake Jackson's is not 100%. Corey Foreman's a freshman who's been good but not great. He's not what Kayvon Thibodeau was as a freshman, for example. But this is a very mediocre linebacking core. It's a very mediocre interior defensive line. Notre Dame needs to be physical and assignment correct. Do that, and Notre Dame's going to score a lot of points in this game, in my opinion.
Okay, so to kind of piggyback off of yours, my second one was Cone needs time to be accurate. We kind of talked about that before, but I'll go with my next one. I have on here that they need to establish the run, but that does not, hold on a second, that does not mean that they need to go 12 and 13 personnel. That means spread it out, do your thing, but still run the ball, because I don't think USC can stop Notre Dame running the ball if they're spread out. I don't think they can do it. They're terrible tackling in space. And I think that is going to help, because I think then USC might start devoting more to the box. And I think that's going to benefit Notre Dame as well in their passing game. So I think that they do need to establish the run, but I want to see it done the right way.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it done with Michael Carmody wearing an eligible number. I don't want to see it with 2 tight ends, both attached to the line. If you want to bring 2 tight ends in, that's fine. Spread one of them out. You can keep one on the line, keep one attached, and put one out at wide receiver. Okay, fine. I can get on board with that. But I do want to see them establish the run. Yeah. I do.
I don't really care about that. I don't think it's needed in this game. I'm fine with it if the run game's just a complement to the pass game. I really am. That doesn't mean I'm okay if they run for 85 yards. They have to run. But when I think of establishing the run, I think of your game plan's built around running the football. And I don't think their game plan needs to be built around running the football. Their game plan needs to be about how can we best get our best players the football and do it in different ways. And establishing the run game means, like I said, you're building around that. And I think the run game needs to be a complement of the pass game. Now, if they come out and run the ball well on USC and they're going 12 look, Notre Dame could go 12 personnel in this game and run on USC. This is a bad defense.
Yeah.
But I don't think it makes you better moving forward. I just don't. And that's my fear, is that they're going to get a false sense of security that, hey, 12
so you're looking bigger picture. You're looking down the road.
I am, but I'm also looking at USC. I don't think you need to do that. I think you can do that, but I don't think that's necessarily a way to achieve maximum success in this game. I want to come out throwing the ball a lot and then force USC to widen out, then come at them with the hammer. That's what I want to see. So to me, I want to see you establish an efficient perimeter pass attack that's built on all 3 levels: screens, quicks, intermediates, and then taking shots. I think if you have that success, then that's when the stuff inside opens up. And we actually saw that in 2017. That's the interesting thing. Notre Dame ran for 377 yards that game. But people forget the reason they were so good running the ball is they hit shots early. First touchdown of the game was a Brandon Wimbush hitting EQ on a post route. The second touchdown was a back shoulder throw to Kevin Stepherson, and they had mixed in some reverses in that game, which I don't count as the run game per se.
Sure. No, I get that.
That's perimeter. And when they started having success with that, USC was like, what the hell do we do? We're sitting there thinking we're trying to protect against, Q and McGlinchey and Bars, and these guys are freaking attacking the perimeter. And then all of a sudden, those inside creases, if you think about how Josh Adams ripped them that game, it was right up the middle. And there was the one play, his 80-yard touchdown run, where he hands it off and Wimbush takes off to the right. The linebacker, the safety on that side, both ran with Brandon Wimbush because they were so afraid of the perimeter. And then all of a sudden, Josh Adams just bam, right up the middle behind Alex Bard for an 80-yard touchdown. Because in that particular game, they somewhat reverse engineered their offense. And I think that's what Notre Dame needs to do this year. And I think that's especially what they need to do with USC. That, to me, would be a key to this game.
My last key, and you can kind of sense a theme here, I guess, but I have that the running backs need to be an important piece.
Yeah,
right?
And that's my second one. Yeah.
But I want them involved in the pass game. You know what I mean? Look, if Chris Tyree is out, okay.
Logan so for Diggs, you, this is a running back game.
Yeah,
big time running back game for you.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, your first two keys are running back focused.
Yeah, they are, and I it's funny that that's the way it turned out. But like as I was thinking through the game, I don't want to see the running backs in blocking. You know what I mean? I want to see them out. I want to see them involved in the offense.
Yeah.
And again, whether it's Chris Tyree or Logan Diggs, either one can have success in this game. Right. You can use Logan Diggs the same way that you were going to use Chris Tyree. Like they're not exactly the same guy, but Logan Diggs can do what they've been asking Chris Tyree to do,
which
up to
is
this point.
Lining up and running between the tackles. And Logan's really good at that. And then put Kyron out in the slot. Yeah,
and he can catch an arrow route, and he can do the things that you need him to do. So my
number two key, Vince, was similar. It's attack the linebackers.
Yes,
that's mine. Now obviously the running backs are step one to that.
Yes, no question.
I mean, if Kyron Williams doesn't have at least 5 targets in the pass game in this game, where it's obvious that he was kind of like part of the initial read, then Tommy Rees isn't doing this thing right, and I think he will. I think we're going to see that. And I'm watching USC's linebackers and coverage. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like if Notre Dame's able to use their running backs effectively and Avery Davis effectively against the line and Michael Mayer effectively against their linebackers and safeties, Notre Dame's going to steamroll them. I'm not confident that they will actually build around that completely, but I think there's opportunities for big plays. This is a very, very mediocre linebacking core.
Yes.
Like this is not your vintage where you're like, man, there's some 5-star kids, but they're just young. No, these guys are just average football players.
They're not good.
And whether it's Logan Diggs or Chris Tyree or Kyron Williams or whoever else, I mean, put Audric Essom in there and say, hey, hammer those line, because they're not it. So I want to see them. Part of the game plan has to be about attacking the linebackers in the box and outside the box. Find ways to isolate your best players.
Love it.
Against their linebackers. And as we've talked about, Kyron Williams is their best skill player that's not a tight end.
Yep.
And the game plan needs to be built around him and Lindsey and Mayer and Austin. I mean, all those guys being the big factors in the pass game. My third was make them chase. Mm-hmm. USC is a very undisciplined team.
Mm-hmm.
When your whole offense is vertically oriented, right? So everybody's kind of going this way. It makes it real easy for an undisciplined team to know what they're going to do. Because, hey, that guy's just running vertically. He's running it in. He's running it out. I know who I got. When you start making them cross and do levels with high lows, even if it's coming from the same side, whatever the case may be, those things are all effective against an undisciplined team.
Yep.
They make a lot of mistakes. Get them chasing. And we've seen some things, send the running back on a wheel route and bring somebody across. Run your smashes out of different concepts. There reminds me a lot of the Florida State game. Florida State was a very not elite, not like they used to be, but a pretty athletic defense. But it's not a real smart, disciplined defense. And Notre Dame did a lot of stuff, that smash concept and, with the tight end, the running back on a release. And there's different things they did that game that exposed Florida State. I want to see some of that stuff in this game too. Make them chase. And that's levels, crosses, screens, jets, reverses, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Make them chase, because then that other stuff will come. Next time if you run a reverse for success, the next time you fake a reverse and you're handing off an inside zone to Logan Diggs, that backside linebacker is going to be freaking out about that reverse, and then bam, you're hitting that inside zone right down his throat. Those are the things that, to me, they have to do. Make USC chase.
I love that. I love that, because they're going to look silly. I mean, bottom line is if they're chasing, they're going to look silly, and I'm all for that.
Yeah. So.
All right, let's switch over to defense, Brian. Some keys to the game on defense.
Well, my number one, Vince, is it's simple. It's control the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
Get pressure on Keaton Slovis. Don't let them run the ball. USC is going to try to run the ball in this game. They're going to learn from the mistake they made in 2019. Same offensive coaching staff. Graham Harrell came out in that game and it was pass, and Notre Dame ate them up. Again, jumped to a 23 lead. Second half, USC came out and they were a lot more balanced. Now, at the end of the game, USC didn't have great rushing numbers, But if you look at what they did, they ended up running for like 171 yards, which isn't like an elite game, but for that offense, it's a lot of yards.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came in the second half because they're like, fine, you want to go nickel personnel, we're going to just run it. And it created a sense of balance to where then all of a sudden the perimeter stuff started being more effective. Notre Dame has to control the line of scrimmage in this game. They have to shut down the USC run game because I do think they're going to try to come out and be balanced. And so to me, that's what we need to see. Pressure. If you pressure Keaton Slovis, and if Jackson Dart plays, and USC said, "Well, he's not medically cleared yet," from the rumblings we're hearing is that I think it's a head fake, is what I think. But whoever's a quarterback, I don't care. Pressure the quarterback. They will. And when Keaton Slovis makes mistakes, they're big. It's not like an incomplete pass. He's throwing it to you.
Yeah, right.
And somebody like I was on a show the other night, and they're like, this quarterback doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and I'm like, actually, yeah, he kind of does. Because if you look at Keaton Slovis's numbers this year, he's got 5 picks in 6 games. Last year he had 7 picks in 6 games. So in the last, in the last 12 games, he's thrown 12 picks, and he's had a couple fumbles in that time too. He will give you the ball if you pressure him, and they have to do that. Shut down the run, pressure the quarterback, and USC has no chance. I mean, literally, I could just say that's the only key to the game.
Yeah, that's
I could get lazy and do that, and it would be really accurate.
Well, I don't know if this is a lazy take or not, and I still want Notre Dame to be aggressive, but my first one is just keep everything in front of you. I don't want them to get big played. I want them to keep everything in front, and then that goes to my next one, which is they have to be able to tackle in space.
See, I think I like that one a lot better than the first one because I think keeping everything in front of you is exactly what USC wants you to do. They want you to play off. They want you to let them nickel and dime them all the way down the field. I think you have to be aggressive. You have to take away the short stuff. But to your point, Vince, you have to be great in space.
Yes.
You have to be great in space against this USC offense because they live and die on either teams playing soft, right, which then allows them to just, Graham Harrell would be perfectly fine throwing the ball 60 times a game and averaging 5.5 yards an attempt with a 70-plus because, again, that's his run game in a lot of ways.
No, absolutely. Stuff. No question.
You have to if he catches it at 3, he has to be stopped at 3.
Correct.
But you have to do that within the framework of a more aggressive defense that tries to get him to force him the ball downfield. So that's
I want them to be aggressive.
Yeah, but when it's hard to be aggressive and keep everything in front of you. I think the take for me would be the second part of what you said, which is you have to be great in space. You have to be great in space. If you're one-on-one with a running back on a swing route, you can't miss because now a 2-yard loss turns into a 15-yard gain. If Drake London catches a screen pass, you got to bring him down quick.
Yes.
Because if he makes the first guy miss, he's going to go. So that to me is be great in space. And that leads to kind of my second point. My second key was you have to have a Drake London plan. And now, look, Drake's going to catch the ball. Like David Bell had 7 catches against Notre Dame. Right. It's a lot of catches.
But he didn't do anything.
64 yards.
Yeah.
You have to have a Drake. If you're going to get beat this week, get beat by somebody not named Drake London. If you can beat us, this is what I say, if I'm Notre Dame, if you can beat us without Drake London taking the game over, then good on you.
Right.
All right. And I don't care if he catches 8-9 balls, but it's got to be for like 8, 9, 10 yards of carry. You got to avoid the game wrecking plays. If he catches it at 5, bring him down to 5. I don't care. Because eventually we're going to be able to look again. When I say we, I'm looking at it from the defensive coaching standpoint. If you want to hit a 5-yard gain to him and we're tackling him, eventually you're going to miss that throw or we're going to do something and it's going to be incomplete. Now you're in 3rd and 10. Now you can't throw him a 5-yard gain. So I think it's eliminate the big play. That's the big key for me.
Yeah.
Eliminate the big plays. Yep. Eliminate Drake making plays after the catch. If you can do that to Drake Bowen, and I don't care if he catches 12 balls, Drake London. I don't care if he catches 12. You see my mind still on recruiting. I said Drake Bowen. Yeah, I don't care if Drake London catches 12 balls, but if it's 12 catches for 95 yards or 101 yards, then he's not taking over the game. He's not making game-wrecking plays. That's the key. You can't let him wreck the game.
And that's why I wrote down contain London. It didn't say stop. Yeah, because you're not going to stop.
Because that's
completely.
What they did to David Bell. I mean, David Bell had a 31-yard play in that game, but when David Bell caught those screens, he was getting tackled on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And exactly. That's to your point, and that goes back to your second point, Vince, which is you got to be great in space.
Yep.
Corners have to be great, and they have to be aggressive.
To me, that's the number one.
Blow up blockers, fly to the ball. If you do that, they're going to be good. My final key, Vince, is the linebackers have to play great. The USC stresses the heck out of your linebackers. Run game, pass game, screens. They really stress your linebackers offensively. JD and Drew White have to be great in this game. Mm-hmm. They have to. And if Jack Kaiser and Isaiah Pryor in the game, and I don't know the structure of what they're going to do. Is it going to be 4-2 with a pure nickel? Is it going to be 3-3 with a nickel, which would then put the Rovers in the game? I don't know what they're going to do. But however many linebackers are on the field, they have to play great. Because USC is going to look at them and say, what is the weakness of this team? There's two, right? Linebackers in the pass game and your cornerback's not named Cam Hart. Correct. And USC is going to go after that.
Absolutely,
and that's going to be a big key. And so they have to not allow this game to become down to Drake, and that's part of the Drake London plan. If you have Clarence Lewis or Tariq Gracie locked up on Drake London, they need to have a call that gives them help. Look, Alec Pierce is a good player. He ain't Drake London. And they left him isolated they left Clarence isolated against Alec Pierce the whole game, and he got dominated. They can't do that against Drake London.
Right.
Because we'll see a very similar result.
Agreed.
That game. So those are my keys, Vince.
I got one more. Yeah. They need to continue USC's touchdown woes in the red zone.
Yeah.
Because I think
been great.
They have
on defense in the red zone.
They've been excellent, and USC has been very poor scoring touchdowns in the red zone. I think they're like 56% when they get in there. The rest they kick field goals, but they're not good at getting touchdowns. And so
they're one of the best teams in the country at getting points once they
correct.
Get the red zone.
They're like 96%.
They've only been stopped once in the red zone.
Right.
But to your point, Vince, those are usually they have 14 touchdowns this year and 10 field goals.
Right. Exactly. And that's they need to continue that. Because look, I still think with everything that we said, I still feel like USC is going to get their yards. They're going to move the ball a little bit, but if they get into the red zone, you have to keep them out of the end zone. If you can do that, you're going to win the game.
This is the craziest stat I've ever seen. They're 8th in the country. And because I made those cards for you guys for the show, 8th in the country in red zone offense overall, just scoring 8th, right? 96%, 24-25. They're 86th in touchdown conversion percentage.
Right.
86th.
That's such a difference.
It really is kind of wild. And Notre Dame's defense is kind of similar in that, where if you kind of look at Notre Dame's red zone numbers overall, they're not great. I think, I'm going to pull it up here. They rank 67th overall in red zone scores allowed, 20-24. Now, I think that's a little misleading because there's been at least that I can think of 5 times where the other team started the drive in the red zone. At least 3 for sure.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to think like 4 or 5. Or the other team, and for sure, there's more than 4 to 5 times that the other team has started the ball in Notre Dame territory. That's like a first down away from being in the red zone. But then Notre Dame ranks 10th in touchdowns allowed. They've only given up 10 touchdowns on 24 red zone possessions. There was a drive where USC against Cincinnati started inside Notre Dame's 10-yard line, and they held them to a field goal. Right? I mean, Virginia Tech had 1st and goal at the 2-yard line, and they held them to a field goal.
Right.
You've got to do that, Vince, and your point is absolutely correct. USC is going to move the ball when they get across your field, hold them to 3.
Yep.
That's going to be a big part of this game.
That's exactly right.
And so you could add to that, if you limiting the big plays is a big part of that, because if you can get into the red zone, then you have more room, because this is the fastest defense USC is going to have played this year. There's going to be throws Keaton Slovis thinks he's been able to make all year that he's not going to make if Kyle Hamilton's back there.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Right? Or Cam Hart's back, outside. So that's going to be a big key for me. Yeah.
Prediction time,
yes.
Brian. This is
I got to give my man JP a little bit of love, though. Appreciate that, JP, very much. It's good to be back. Prediction time, Vince.
Yeah, we this is where the rubber meets the road, and I don't know. I sent you my prediction earlier today, and I'm sure you saw it.
Now that I see it, Vince, I have a card ready to go for it.
Look at you. I am very confident in this, but well, you're even more confident than I am. Holy smokies. I said in my written prediction, and not that I'm giving too much away here, but that I'm not confident enough to put Notre Dame in the 40s just yet, but I'm confident in the high 30s. And that's how bad I think USC's defense actually is.
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame is going to have an opportunity to put some points on the board. And I also don't think that USC is going to find the end zone all that much against Notre Dame. And when they do, it might even be garbage time, to be perfectly honest with you. And on top of that, you talked about the fact that Keaton Slovis makes massive mistakes. It could be a pick six situation for Notre Dame. And so some of these points could come from the defense.
And I see that. I see the part of my 41, Vince, is either special teams or defense is going to either score or set up a score. If I thought that Notre Dame's offense was going to make, I'll put it like this, from what I've seen of USC, if I had any confidence that Notre Dame's offensive coaches were going to put together the kind of game plan that I've been begging for all year, I would have picked more than that.
Yeah,
I would have. This involves the defense also being a part of that. So, yeah, that's where I'm coming from. But continue.
I was tempted to go in the 40s. I really was. I feel very good about this game. I have no qualms, obviously, about Notre Dame losing this game.
Could it happen? Sure.
Of course.
Notre Dame would have to literally, what the bed.
Yes. Notre Dame can lose any game. I mean, any team can lose any game at this point. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it enough in college football this year, right?
I mean, so let's be honest. Notre Dame's a lot closer to being 3-3 than they are to 6-0.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
2-4. They could have lost the Florida State game. They could have lost the Toledo game. They could have lost the Virginia Tech game.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And but I just think that USC is such a mentally weak team as well that they're just gonna if Notre Dame can go down and put 2 touchdowns on the board right away, and Notre Dame's defense holds USC out of the end zone, so it's 14-0 right off the shoot. I think USC folds it up. Like I have not been impressed with them in tough situations.
I think the other thing I would say too, Vince, is that's why the first quarter is so important for Notre Dame.
Absolutely.
Because the exact opposite is also true. Yeah. If you let them hang around, they will then get confidence and it will be a battle for 4
Don't let them believe.
Right. I don't think this game will be like the 2019 game where if Notre Dame jumps out to a big lead, USC rallies back in the second half.
I don't either.
They did that with Drake London as your 4th receiver. I mean, that was a Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyler Vaughn's, Drake London team.
Right.
I don't think this team is there. If you let them hang around earlier, if you have mistakes that lead to scores or, if it's a 20-17 game, I'm real nervous in the second half.
Sure.
If you jump out and you get stops early on defense and you put 6 and 7 on the board on offense, right, then USC to me will fold. But it's not that they've got a lot of young guys. They've got no head coach, if we're being honest. I mean, Dante Williams is an interim. He's not going to be the next head coach.
No, he's already got his resume outplayed. I mean, these guys are all looking for jobs.
Right. This is the kind of game where you've got to come out and bury them. Yes. Like Mike Michael's prediction. You've got to come out and bury them. And I think that if Notre Dame, that's kind of why I went 41-24. I feel like this is also like a 41-24 where USC puts one on at the end of the game because they will get their yards.
Yeah.
But, I just feel like this right here would shock the heck out of me.
Yeah. That's too low scoring.
Shock the heck out of me. Yeah.
That's too low scoring.
Then we have this one. So those are some of the predictions that we've seen. Savage, I love this one. That'd be phenomenal.
I would love that.
That'd be phenomenal. Yeah. So that to me is my prediction, Vince. I think Notre Dame's going to come out. I think they're going to be balanced. I think they're going to be good on offense, not great on offense. But I think the defense is going to give some. They're going to give up some plays, and USC is going to get some points. But they're also going to force a lot of USC mistakes because this is a USC team that makes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
they are one of the worst teams in the country when it comes to turning the ball over. I mean, I know you guys talked about it yesterday in your show. I actually didn't listen to that part of it. I had to leave by then, but I believe you did when you got to the scoring offense.
Yep.
Because you look at the ranking of what USC is and then what Notre Dame is, and you're like, well, okay, that's a big difference. Notre Dame's really good at forcing turnovers. USC's really good at turning it over,
Right.
So I think that's going to be a key as well. So that's where I come down on 41-24. Vince is 37-17. We'll see. Actually, so what's funny is you think that I'm bold and out there, but you actually have a greater margin of victory than I do.
I do. I was just thinking that as I was looking at these numbers.
I had 4 more points than you did, and then you're acting like I just predicted them to score 90.
Well, I just see the 4 there.
Explosion. Yeah, I basically predicted one drive to result in a touchdown, and you think it's going to be a field goal. That's the difference.
That's fair.
Could it be more convincing than this? Yes. Could it be closer than this? Yes. It's all going to come down to Notre Dame. Look, this is a game, Vince, to me, this is all about Notre Dame. If you play your game, if you come out with the emotion, the proper, just a good game plan, and the players play hard and execute it, it won't be close.
Yeah.
If you come out like you have in some other games where you're flat, you're not executing, you're doing stupid penalties or taking away big gains, or you're turning guys loose and letting big plays happen and all those other kind of things, then it'll be a battle, just like every other game has been.
Right.
So this is about Notre Dame. If Notre Dame plays their game, this is going to not be close. And it's going to be a fun night. So hopefully that's the case. But don't forget, if you're coming in town, we are going to have an Irish Breakdown tailgate on Saturday. I'm so excited about that. I'm going to try to get out there between noon and 1. We're going to be in the Joyce parking lot. I'm going to tweet out and put on the message board kind of exactly where we are. So I'll give like a light post number of where we're going to be. So we're not going to have a lot of food because I don't think there's going to be a lot of people there again, to be honest with you. But we will have some food if you swing by. I'm really looking forward to everybody being a part of it. Vince is, I think, going to try to grace us with his presence at some point in time as well. But I'm excited about it. So make sure you lock in at irishbreakdown.com. I'm going to have an article up later about the recruits that are going to be here this weekend and just kind of my thoughts on how important this weekend is. And, more breakdowns. We'll have some game predictions tomorrow. We also do game predictions of other teams. So there's some very intriguing matchups this week that we'll have. So you definitely want to check that out. Give us a 5-star review if you're listening via podcast. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell if you're listening via YouTube or watching via YouTube. Make sure you join us. I don't know what happened there, but make sure you join us on the message board. But for Vince, he's up there. I'm Brian. Everybody have a great rest of your day. And we'll be back tomorrow I'll be back tomorrow for the Friday mailbag. So everybody have a great rest of your day. Talk to you again soon. Sign up for the message board.